After a long time, the most legendary episode finally came out. And it turned out to be literally legendary, and I predicted almost everything that happened in this episode, and it's incredible. And also at the same time, it was the saddest episode since we lost 2 heroes. But although the speakerman was killed by a skibidi scientist, the plunger cameraman himself was killed by Dafuk. And in this video, you will find out why Boom did this. And in this episode, there were a lot of details that you definitely didn't notice. And today I will try to answer all your questions, and we will find absolutely all the details. And I will tell you in detail who Dafuk Boom is, and what he talked about with the skibidi scientist. And you will also find out what kind of cameramen these are and what is their purpose, and also what will happen in the next episode. And there will be many cool theories. Hello friends, you're on the channel. Subscribe to the channel and press the like button under the video to speed up the release of the next video. And let's go. The episode begins from the very moment where the previous part ended, and the plunger cameraman successfully opens the doors and the agents continue their path through this bunker. And we heard the sound of a blow on the doors on the right, and it was probably one of the strong toilets. But the agents continued to move on. And now we hear the sounds of the Gmail Titan who is giving orders to the toilets. And this means that he is quite close to these corridors, and perhaps one of the corridors leads to him. And the plunger man headed to the next doors, and there we see a patrolling toilet, and the agents are trying to sneak into this door. And as soon as the door opens, we see the same inscription in the right corner. Transmission error and recording error and the green light of the Dafuk. But another toilet came out of this door. But it turns out that this toilet does not see the agents. And also the same inscription is still on top. And already here we can notice that the plunger cameraman has become invisible. And also the speakerman has also become invisible, and already in this frame we can notice the lucky guy. And how many times have I said that he is alive and he is only pretending? Since in the previous episode he received only a scratch and I was sure that he would survive. And I also mentioned that he moves around the laboratory as if he was already here. And it turns out that he was here before, and we also see that he has a bright green light under the camera. And it was Dafuk Boom himself who saved the agents so that they could get to the skibidi scientist. And then we see how this cameraman became also invisible. And now it became clear to me how in part 4 of episode 67 he got into this laboratory, although we did not see how he entered there. But perhaps it was with the help of his invisibility that he got there unnoticed. And it is also important to note that the inscription on top has not yet disappeared, and even now we can hear how Dafuk Boom talking to the skibidi scientist. And we see that the door began to close, but with the help of the remote control, the agents opened it again. And then we see a very strange scene for us as Dafuk communicates with the skibidi scientist. And it seems to me that the scientist himself used to work with Dafuk in this laboratory. But then they had disagreements, and the scientist made himself a toilet, and Dafuk tried to fight this infection. But about a secret agent we will talk at the end, because there are a lot of details in the last scene. And after Dafuk's words, we again see a green light on the camera, and the inscription on top disappears. And then the scientist turned to the agents and began to laugh because he thought that he could easily kill the agents and the skibidi toilet is already firing its lasers. But the plunger cameraman closed this door again. But the scientist still smiles evenly and begins to press the buttons on his panel, and a laser appeared. But the plunger man also turned it off. But another laser managed to shoot and wounded the plunger man. But then he also turned it off, and the scientist is already trying to escape. But the remote control of Mr. Boom is stronger than that of the scientist. And now we see that the scientist is already angry and presses again on his buttons. And the scientist wanted to escape using a teleport and even said goodbye to the agents. But the plunger cameraman turned off this ability. And this is a very funny moment, since it turns out that this ability can be turned off or absorbed. And I didn't even think that this ability had such weaknesses. And I always thought that teleport was too cheating ability. But now it's not so cheating anymore. And the plunger man challenges the scientist to a fight, and the scientist takes out his huge gun, and the disco show begins. But the scientist doesn't hit the plunger, but he's still smiling. But because he's too relaxed, he gets a spear in the head from Speakerman, and the Speakerman went into close combat, but the scientist was able to catch him, and Plungerman went to help. But the scientist threw him away and then tore the Speakerman into 2 parts. And I was very surprised that this is how the Speakerman would die. But in fact, he has not died yet, and we see how 2 brothers are already hitting the scientist's face together. But the scientist was able to fight them off and fired from his cannon at the plunger man. And then he destroyed the speaker man. And this makes me very sad, since the Dark Assassin was one of my favorite characters, although it will last for a while, but we already know what will happen in the end. In any case, we will talk about that later, and now we see that the scientist was able to take the remote control from the plungerman and again use the teleport ability. But at that moment, reinforcements of agents broke through the door, and we see the new ability of TV Man, how TV Man was able to absorb this black smoke. And because of this, the scientist will no longer be able to escape using the teleport. Also, if you look at this computer, we see some kind of model of a spaceship or something. Or perhaps it's a new turbine for skibidi toilets. But we probably won't see it anymore since the scientist has big problems. And the scientist fired his laser. But TV Man, with the help of a sound wave and light, threw the scientist away. And then the cameraman attacked him. But the scientist was able to open the door under his feet and jumped in. And TV Man said, "Stand back now." And the huge body of the scientist appears from underground. And this was obvious to me since I said many times that the scientist has another and stronger body. But in fact, this body is no stronger than the previous one. And from the weapon, we see only 4 large lasers and 2 small guns on the sides. But the agent somehow closed the door, and it seems strange to me. Because to open this door, you need the same remote control as the plunger cameraman has. But where do the other agents get the remote control? Or perhaps TV Man had this remote control, since he was the first to enter the room. In fact, I really suspect the TV race since we have already seen that their books were on this base. And perhaps they themselves were on this base before. But there is very little evidence against them. So I won't say that they are traitors. But I will always suspect them because it seems to me that they have their own goal. Anyways, the scientists decided to destroy these doors, and just look at how powerful these lasers are. And what high-quality graphics. Boom tried very hard on this episode. And these lasers destroyed this door in a second. But reinforcements came from behind, and all the women immediately flew to attack the scientist's head. And at this time, Rembo distracted the scientist, and the scientist immediately felt the damage and turned around and began shooting everywhere with his powerful lasers. And at that moment, we can see a bright hole behind his toilet. The frame is very blurry, but it seems to me that this is some kind of generator. Or it was there that the skibidi scientist was hiding, and the women headed exactly there. And the scientist continued to destroy his base and wanted to kill Rembo. And Rembo fell to the ground, and I thought that he was killed. But he was alive, and the scientist began to laugh and already wanted to kill him. But his lasers went out, and he began to scream and rush from side to side. And this body was destroyed from inside as the women climbed inside this robot and began to attack the real scientist. And we see how the scientist flies out and unhooks the head of the TV woman from his face, and at this time other women attacked the scientist on the head. But he was able to throw them off, and when the women landed, we see the face of the TV woman from the leaked frame. And we also see that the speaker woman forgot her katana in the head of a scientist. But this is no longer particularly important, since the most important moment has arrived. When the scientist tried to escape outside, our titans were already waiting for him, and the cameraman grabbed the poor scientist and fried him for the speaker man. And at this moment, we can hear from the scientist that he is asking for mercy. Although he spoke his own language, but I'm sure that he asked for mercy. But he did too many bad things for mercy. And after frying, the cameraman handed it into the hand of TV Man, and TV Man, with a smile on his face, crushed the scientist and then handed it over the Speaker Man. And Speaker Man looked at it for this pathetic creature who was trying to survive, and released his sound wave, and then he began to make a chop out of the scientist, and it turned out very funny. But he had reasons for this since the scientist infected him earlier and forced him to kill and fight against his own alliance. And also a very important detail is that the TV screen on TV Titan's shoulder is broken. And this is very strange, since in episode 70 he didn't have a broken screen. And it's very difficult to say how this happened. And the most obvious option is that the Titans again fought with an army of toilets, and one of the toilets managed to break this screen, but to be honest, I don't believe that an ordinary skibidi toilet could break this screen. I'll believe if that Astro toilet would have done that, because it's damn strong. But we saw that the Astro toilet flew away, and I doubt that it came back again. In any case, it's hard for me to answer this, and if you have any thoughts about that, then let me know. And after the speaker man made a chop, he threw the scientist to the ground, and then the plunger cameraman took off his lens, and we see that the large TV man's screen is broken. But he said that it was only a scratch. And it's very funny that TV man said that it was only a scratch, and this means that changing the screen is not difficult. And I'm happy for him because he helped the agents a lot. And then we see a heartbreaking moment, as the plunger cameraman crawled to the speaker man with the last of his strength and took him by the hand. And this is such a heartbreaking moment that I have no words, although I guessed about his death. But when I realized that he really died, I felt very bad because he is my favorite character. And he did not give up until the very end, and we will never forget him. And the most important thing is that Plunger Cameraman forgave him for sacrificing the twins. And now Speakerman died without regretting anything. Press F to pay respect. And we also see that even the TV woman cried, and we see such emoticon for the first time. But suddenly the transmission error and recording error message appeared again. And we see a cameraman in a red shirt who was watching all this, and he became invisible. And then we see two cameramen shaking hands, and then we see a green light and the secret agent himself. And he sits at the table, and next to him are the heads of cameraman, speakerman, and TV man. And it seems to me that it was he who created all the races of agents, and then he says, "Well done, thanks to you that scientist cooked." However, a bigger threat is coming, and we see the face of the Astro Toilet. That's why some things are to remain secret, and there is no evidence left except one thing. And the Plunger Man will not survive this battle. And then we see how sparks begin to come from Plungerman. And Camera Woman wants to help him, but TV Woman stopped her. And Plunger Cameraman showed with his last strength, thumbs up to Cameraman Titan. And we see that the Cameraman Titan did not understand what was happening and tried to take a closer look. And at the top we see the inscription, "Critical damage." And the life in our hero fades away. And this is where the episode ends. And I actually have tears in my eyes after all this. Two of the best agents died, and I don't even know what to say. I guess that one of them would die, and also assumed that even two could die. And so it all happened. And this is the most tragic episode of all time. And the Skibidi toilet will no longer be the same for us. But in any case, life goes on and the series continues, and be sure to press the like button in honor of these heroes. But let's talk about Dafuk Boom and these cameramen. And these are the same cameramen that we saw in the elevator in part 2 of episode 70. And I'll tell you even more. These are the same twins cameramen that Michael Jackson was supposed to kill. But in fact, he didn't kill them, and they became invisible. And they deliberately stayed behind to fake their death. And the cameraman in the red shirt also did it. And this plan was made by a secret agent who thought absolutely everything. And he also killed the Plunger Cameraman because he knew too much. But you know what? As always, I will make another video about a secret agent and also about these cameramen. But I assure you that I only showed you the tip of the iceberg. And if I told you everything about them, then the video would be 25 or 30 minutes long. So be sure to subscribe to my channel so as not to miss my new video, where you will learn absolutely everything about the secret agent and these cameramen. And there will also be cool details that you definitely didn't notice. And you were on the channel, and see you.